I didn't see that. Can you get that? Thanks. All right. This is regular meeting of the same last week. Meeting board is now, it's not going to prayer, Mr. Skinner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for today and thank you for allowing us to come and serve our community, our students, and teachers, and our school district. We pray that everything that we do today will be on your side. In Jesus' name we pray.
I need a motion to approve the consent items as presented. Minutes of regular board meeting of August 15, 2022, and 2022 operating procedures.
Mr. President, I so move.
Have a motion by Ms. McElwain, a second.
A second.
Second by Ms. Knight. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
District Goal 1 is our security. You'll recall that we changed our district goals about 3 years ago to have safety being number 1. And each year we go over our goals. And so this is really things that we did last year, not some things that we've started doing this year. So we have district-wide radios. As you know, card entry, we redid our door locks, our gates, totally redone those. I think that was around a little over $700,000. We have campus crisis teams. Anytime there's a situation or we get word that a child might need some help and assistance, we put the crisis teams in place there. All of our teachers have had the mental health, harassment, bullying, trauma-informed care, human trafficking, and there's a host of other trainings that we have to do every single year prior to school starting. We do drug test all of our students, 7 through 12, that are in extracurricular. I think that's still an important thing that we do prior to school starting to get that baseline. So any students in extracurricular. We have a visitor screening sign-in, the Raptor system at all of our campuses. It will alert the principal, Mr. Fye, and the secretary if there is a hit on that. They do not get their badge. It's pretty quick like that if they're in a sexual registered sex offender or anything of that nature. We do criminal background checks. Again, we're required to do all that on all of our employees and volunteers. And then everybody should have their TISD photo identification and required to have that on them and wear. As you know, we've replaced some cameras in the district, added cameras, replaced some of the older ones throughout the district. And then we have an emergency notification system. We have the all call that we can call out. Ms. Sloan does a lot of that. Each campus can do that as well if there's a situation that comes about. And then we have our regular safety drills. Kind of get ahead a little bit. This year we had to have all those planned out, documented, because we're going to have to upload those in October, by October 12th, to the state. But normally we let the campuses determine when they're going to do those, and we keep track of it. This year, a little bit different. We had to do it in advance before the kids get there. Campuses district has a crisis management plan. We look at that, look over that. We have some threat assessment teams that also, if need be. Last year, as you know, COVID protocols. This year, the COVID protocol is pretty simple. It's one page. It's on our website under COVID. It's very simple, 5 days. And there's not a lot of the documentation that we're having to do in the past. We were having to do a lot of contact tracing. This year, we're not having to do that. Last year, the board voted to have the Guardian program implemented. And so that is been implemented across the district. Also, this is our 3-year safety audit. We are required by TEA to have a safety audit from someone from outside the organization, and it is submitted. That audit, they might have finished up last week, but they've been in the district for a couple of weeks. And that will be compiled and be reported to the board in executive session when that report is done. Just kind of get a heads up there, I did find out that they could not get on the campuses. And, like, the doors were locked, could not get in. So that was a good thing. Now, we'll probably have a couple of things in there. There might have been a door cracked or something like that, but we'll take care of that when we get that report. We have a safety and security team. That safety and security team is required to meet once in the fall, once in the spring, and one in the summer. It consists of the board president and one board member. And that right now, Mr. Crawford had done that when he was board president, and Mr. Williams served. And so now Mr. Adams is board president, so he sat in on one, and Mr. Williams has continued to do that. And there are different requirements for that safety team. Just to give you an idea of who's on there, it is just going to be myself. You need Russ County Emergency Management, Russ County Sheriff, Tatum Police, and if you have your own police department, of course, your board president, one board member, and then you need a teacher and a parent. We've added Mr. Fight, technology. We've added a couple other parents as well, because a lot of times the parents can't make it. So we just want to make sure we have plenty of people and have a quorum there. So it's a very small committee, but at the last meeting, we went over the EOP and some of the requirements that the state is having the school district do with our door sweeps weekly that we have to do, and then we will be submitting that as well, and that will be looked at. So that's pretty much all of our goal one. Let's see, any questions? Okay, thank you. The next thing we have is Mr. Miles going to be up here talking about our defeasance.
Okay, so we talked about this in the last meeting, kind of find down that principle a little bit, and we approved it, but we got to approve now is the money behind it. So I've got to ask the board to approve raising the budget in 599 so we can make that payment. That wire, I believe, we're going to do this again in probably June for the second half, not half, it's the second payment. So we'll raise the budget again in June to buy down that principal. So I asked the board approved to increase 599 $270,000.
Are we gonna do the same amount in June
I
though?
believe it's 750 or 8. Is it 850?
I think so, 850.
850 in June.
Do I have a motion to approve the increase in expenditures in Fund 599 debt service in the amount of $270,000 to cover the cost of cash deficits of the unlimited tax refunding bonds series 2016 as presented?
Mr. President, I so move.
A motion by Mr. Williams.
I'll
A
second.
second by Mr.
Crawford.
Crawford. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carried.
All right, so the next thing I need to ask is that, as Dr. Richard said earlier, the locks cost around $700,000. Well, they didn't finish the job, and we've got to pay them in the same year that they do the work. So since they're not quite done with it, we saved $200,000 in last year's budget, but we got to raise the budget for that same $200,000 because they didn't complete the job in that fiscal year. We're basically going across fiscal years, and this is not uncommon.
We did it last year, I think, for the school.
Right. So we're saving that money last fiscal year. This fiscal year, we got to raise the budget to cover them completing it.
We have a motion to approve increase expenditures in Fund 199.51 in the amount of $200,000 to complete construction costs, installation of a new locking system as presented.
Mr. President, I also move.
Motion by Ms. McElwain, second by Mr. Skinner. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? None motion carries.
Okay, so every year, we're gonna start approving what's called our state federal grants manual. And basically gives us protocols on, procurement of services and goods when we use federal funds. And so it's a manual that we get from TASBO, that I get from TASBO, and then kind of making our own with, you know, what grant money we get. And, it's a pretty generic manual, but we're gonna start having the board approve that manual. We've been, you know, recommending that we start doing that. It's a 92-page manual, if y'all want to go through it. You're good? Okay.
I need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 state and federal grants manual as presented.
Mr. President, that's a name.
Motion by Ms. Hagan, have a second, have a second by Mr. Smith, any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? None, motion carried.
All right, lastly, Wes Boyd, our technology director, really feels that we need to change out some of the switches. And basically what that is we got our broadband, our fiber coming in town, we got our broadband and that gets to the students. Well, the switches are kind of the relay between. And I don't think they've been changed out, I believe it's 2012.
Well,
Okay, so they switch out. The technology is kind of passing by. So, he got with E-Rate, they're gonna pay for a portion of it, and we're gonna pay for a portion of it. But we'd like to get the board to approve raising the budget for that amount of $77,000 to pay for these new switches throughout the whole district.
and E-rate's gonna pay for about $189,000.
Need a motion to approve the network switches, increasing expenditures in Fund 199, Function 53, in the amount of $78,000 to cover costs of this project as presented.
Mr. President, also move.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Crawford. All in favor? All opposed? None, motion carries. Board will not convene in closed meeting and discuss the following items posted on our agenda this evening, as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.74 involving the resignation, employment, and protection personnel. The board also considers security personnel advice and audits as allowed by the Texas Government Code 551.076. No vote will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in this closed session will take place after the board convenes an open meeting. It is now 5:43.
Perfect. Thank y'all.
Y'all have a good